Ladies and gentlemen, today... Oh, why are you approaching me? Oh, hello, sir. What's going on?
Lord Crusader.
Oh. Lord Crusader.
He's
oh,
just arrived.
The prophet.
He
What the hell is he
seemed to
doing
know
here?
you
That
were
old bum.
coming, told me to wait for you, and here you are.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. That's it.
Assembled knights in the chapel. You should speak to him at once.
Wait, what if I didn't allow any of those people to be knights? Would they not be here? That's kind of funny. Yeah, today is the day that we, I believe, defeat Umaril the Unfeathered. We are decked out in our Holy Crusader gear. This will probably be the last time, the first and last time, essentially, that we wear the complete set. But we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to wear the complete set. We're not going to resist magic in the slightest, which is kind of a very big risk, because that's a very scary concept. Actually, if I were to create a spell, before we do anything else, what if I just made the, thank you, if I just made the ultimate shield spell that let me resist all forms of magic 100%. It's probably going to cost a ton. But I think I could do it. Yeah, because I could just do. Here we go. Fire shield on self, magnitude 100 points. So for maybe not. Maybe I can't do that. Okay. Yeah, never mind. That's not gonna happen. that's a lot of magic. That's a lot of magic I don't really have. Okay. Let's pretend as if I never said that, and we're just gonna go back. Well. We're just going to suffer through it. And, ooh, these guys have done a really good job with the place. I mean, they couldn't repair the wall for some reason. But we got a full-fledged farm out here with ginseng plants and flax and fennel and carrots and lettuce plants. And carrot plants, too. Oh, my. Yeah, today we complete the story of Pelinal Whitestrake. This man. This shall become us. Except this guy apparently is left-handed, which is kind of strange. Oh, that's really bothering me. Why is he left-handed? They should have just made this backwards. Huh, curious, okay. Well, yeah. The image of him defending the land. Let's go listen to what the prophet, the man with the voice. Let's hear what the man with the voice has to say. Actually, let's check if there's anybody else in here. And like, are those ghosts still around, or what's the big deal there? Also, ooh, oh yes, we have all the books. Oh yeah, okay, we can read all these books now, which is kind of nice. How long are these books? Is the thing. All the copies I have are stolen. How many copies? How many volumes are this? 8 volumes. Wow, why do we only have up to volume 7? That's so stupid. How long are each of these volumes? They're like 3 or 4 pages. I think I'm actually gonna read these. I think maybe in the next video? Or at the end of this video? No, I'm gonna read these now. You know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna read these now. If you don't want to stick around for all the reading and you want to get to the real juice of the video, I would just skip ahead. The Song of Pelinal, Volume 1, on his name. Editor's note, Volumes 1 through 6 are taken from the so-called Riemann manuscript located in the Imperial Library. It is a transcription of older fragments collected by an unknown scholar of the early Second Era. Beyond this, little is known of the original sources of these fragments, some of which appear to be from the same period, perhaps even from the same manuscript. But as no scholarly consensus yet exists on dating these 6 fragments, no opinions will be offered here. That he took the name Pelinal was passing strange, no matter his later sobriquets, which were many. That was an elvish name, and Pelinal was a scourge on that race, and not much given to irony. Pelinal was much too grim for that. Even in youth he wore white hair, and trouble followed him. Perhaps his enemies named Pelinal of their own in their near tongue, but that is doubtful, for it means glorious knight, and he was neither to them. Certainly, many others added to that name during his days in Tamriel. He was Pelinal the Whitestrake, because of his left hand, made of a killing light. He was Pelinal the Bloody, for he Drank? It's in victory. He was Pelinal insurgent, because he gave the Crusaders a face. He was Pelinal in triumph, as the words eventually became synonymous. And men-at-arms gave thanks to the Eights when they saw his banner coming through war. He was Pelinal the blamer, for he was quick to admonish those allies of his that favored tactics that ran counter to his, that is, sword theory. And he was Pelinal the Third, though whether this was because some said he was a god geezer, who had who had incarnated twice before already, or that simpler, he was the third vision given to Perith, Anon Alessia, in her prayers of liberation before he walked among the quarters of rebellion, is unknown. Okay, the guy has a name. Cool. The Song of Pelinal, Volume 2, On His Coming. I think this is the same note. Offered here, that ends in offered here, this one ends in offered here. Okay, that's the same note. And then Perith spoke to the handmaiden again, eyes to the heavens which had not known kindness since the beginning of elven rule, and she spoke as a mortal, whose kindle is beloved by the gods for its strength and weakness, a humility that can burn with metaphor and yet to break easily again, always, always doomed to end in death. And this is why those who let their souls burn anyway are beloved of the dragon and his kin. And she said, "In this thing I have thought of, I have named it, and I call it freedom, which I think is just another word for Shazar, who goes missing. You made the first rain at his sundering, and that is what I ask now for our alien masters, that we might sunder them fully and repay their cruelty by dispersing them to drown in the Topol. Morahias, your son, mighty and snorting, gore-horned, winged, when next he flies down, let him bring us anger." I am so confused. I thought this was supposed to be the story of, like, that guy's life. I don't even know what the fuck we're talking about anymore. And it just started. And then Kine granted Perith another symbol, a diamond soaked red with the blood of elves, whose facets could unsector and form into a man whose every angle could cut her jailers in a name. Pelin El, which is the star-made knight, and he was arrayed in armor from the future time, and he walked into the jungles of Sirad already killing, Morhias stamping at his side, Froth bloody and bellowing from excitement because the Pelinal was come, and Pelinal came to Perith's camp of rebels, holding a sword and mace, both encrusted with the smashed viscera of elven faces, feathers and magic beads, which were the markings of the Iliadun, stuck to the redness that hung from his weapons, and he lifted them, saying, "These were their eastern chieftains, no longer full of their talking." You know, I feel like these books are like a bit too anti-elf. You know what I mean? They're just acting as if like it's genuinely a good thing for this man to be killing a shit ton of elves, because for some reason, yeah, just elves deserve it. All elves, no matter what. I mean, surely some of the aliens weren't piece of shit slave masters, you know? Pelinal Whitestrake was the enemy of all elf kind, yeah, like seriously, that lived in Sirad in those days. He doesn't seem to be the most holy of men. Mainly, though, he took it upon himself to slay the sorcerer kings of the aliens in pre-arranged open combats rather than at war. Okay, I mean, I guess that's a good thing. The fields of rebellion he left to the growing armies of the Paravania and his bull nephew. Pelinal called out Haramir of copper and tea into a duel at the Tor, and ate his neck veins while screaming praise to Riemann, a name that no one knew yet. Gordhar, the Shaper's head, was smashed upon the goat-faced altar of Ninindava. Oh, we've been there. Oh, maybe that's Ninindava. Was that, that may have just been one of the places where we found the alien statue. I don't know if that was, like, the place where we went to with Umbacano. It might have been, actually, where Umbacano ended up dying. Huh. Curious indeed. But yeah, like, this dude is pretty freaking... He was, what, What did he do to his neck? He ate his neck veins. Like, that is not a good thing to do, my guy. That is not very holy of you. Oh my lord. And in his wisdom, Pelinal said a small plague spell to keep that evil from reforming by Welkin magic. Later that season, Pelinal slew Had Hull on the... Oh, that was another... I think that was another one that was mentioned. I could be wrong. On the granite steps of Seatar. Yeah, that was in... that was the other place, I think. I don't know, we were definitely at Seatar. The Fire King's spears, knowing their first refute. For a time, no weapon of the Aelids could pierce his armor, which Pelinal admitted was unlike any crafted by man, but would say no more even when pressed. When Hunna, whom Pelinal raised from grain slave to hoplite, and loved well, took death from an arrowhead made from the beak of Selethol, the singer, the White Strake went on his first madness. His first madness? This dude is just straight up bad. What the fuck? He wrought destruction from Narlamay all the way to Seladil, and erased those lands from the maps of elves and men, and all things in them. And Perif was forced to make sacrifice to the gods to keep them from leaving the earth in their disgust. Okay, nah, he definitely starts off as the villain. That is definitely what this is meant to be. And then came the storming of White Gold, where the Aelids had made pact with the Aeorans of Meridia, that those are the people that keep invading all the churches and whatnot, all the chapels, and summoned them and appointed the terrible and golden-hued half-elf Umaril the Unfeathered as their champion, and, for the first time since his coming, it was Pelinal who was called out to battle by another, for Umaril had the blood of the Ada and would never know death. Ooh, okay, that's kind of interesting. Things are starting to heat up. Pelinal drove the sorcerer armies past the Niben, claiming all the eastern lands from the rebellion of the Patavania, and Cain had to send her rain to wash the blood from the villages and forts that no longer flew Aeliad banners, for the armies of men needed to make camps of them as they went forward. Yeah, this is the most, like, Crusader story ever, like, going to a place and just automatically assuming that because some of these people are bad, that all of them must be bad. To be fair, I'm not too similar with the Crusaders themselves, like the real Crusaders, so yeah, take that with a grain of salt. And he broke the doors open for the prisoners of the Vatash, with the slave queen flying on Morahias above them, and men called her Al-Esh for the first time. He entered the gate at... to win back the hands of the 1,000 strong of Sidor, a tribe now unknown but famous in those days. Yeah, Sidor is another location that we know of, which the Aelids had stolen in the night. 2,000 hands that he brought back in a wagon made of demon bone, whose wheels trailed the sound of woman when ill at heart. Text lost. And after the first pogrom, which consolidated the northern holdings of for the men of Crith, he stood with white hair gone brown with elf blood at the bridge of Helden, where Perif's falconers had sent for the Nords, and they, looking at him, said that Shor had returned. But he spat at their feet for profaning the name. He led them anyway into the heart of the hinterland west. Strive the Aelids inward, towards the Tower of White Gold, a slow retreating circle that could not understand the power of man's sudden liberty, and what fury idea that brought. That was a huge run-on sentence. His mace crushed the thundernocks that Umaril sent as harriers on the rebellion's long march back south and east, and carried Morahias' breath of Cain to Zuathas, the clever cutting man, a need with a Keptu name, for healing when the bull had fallen to a volley of bird beaks, and of course at the Council of Skiffs, where all of the Patavania's armies and all of the Nords shook with fear at the storming of White Gold, so much so that the Al-Esh herself counseled delay. Pelinal grew furious, and made names of Umaril, and made names of what cowards he thought he saw around him, and then made for the tower by himself, for Pelinal often acted without thought. Yeah, dude sounded like a pretty bad guy, I'm not gonna lie. I'm pretty unimpressed with the guy that I'm essentially imitating at this point, if we're gonna be honest, but sure. And his love of Mordehaius. Okay. Okay, yeah, it's still the same thing, I think. It is a solid truth that Mordehaius was the son of Cain, but whether or not Pelinal was indeed the Chazarine is best left unsaid, for once Plantinu, who favored the short sword, said it, and that night he was smothered by moths. Like, what the fuck? It is famous, though, that the two talked of each other as family, with Mordehaius as the lesser, and that Pelinal loved him and called him nephew. But these could be merely the fancies of immortals. Never did Pelinal counsel Mordehaius in time of war, for the man-bull fought magnificently, and led men well, and never resorted to madness. But the White Strake did warn against the growing love with Pedif. We are Ada, Mur, and change things through love. We must take care lest we beget more monsters on this earth. If you do not desist, she will take to you, and you will transform all Sarad if you do this. And to this the bull became shy, for he was a bull. Okay, and he felt his form too ugly for the Parvania at all times, especially when she disrobed for him. What is this even talking about? They having sex now? What the fuck's happening? He snorted, though, and shook his nose hoop into the light of the Secunda moon and said, "She is like the shine on my nose hoop here. An accident sometimes, but whenever I move my head at night, she is there. And so you know what you ask is impossible." Okay. Volume 6, On His Madness. And it is said that he emerged into the world like a padomaic, that is born by Sithis. Now we're on Sithis. And all the forces of change therein. Still others, like Fift of New Teed, said that beneath the Pelinal star armor was a chest that gaped open to show no heart, only a red rage-shaped diamond fashion, singing like a mindless dragon, and that this was proof that he was a myth echo, and that where he trod were shapes of the first urging. Pelinal cared for none of this, and killed any who would speak god logic, except for fair Perif, who, he said, enacts rather than talks, as language without exertion is dead witness. When those soldiers who heard him say this stared blankly, he laughed and swung his sword, running into the reign of Cain to slaughter their Iliad captives, screaming, "O Akka, for our shared madness I do this. I watch you watching me watching back." What the fuck? Umuril dares call us out, for that is how we made him. And it was during these fits of anger and nonsense that Pelinal would fall into the madness, where whole swaths of land were devoured in divine rampage to become void, and Alessia would have to pray to the gods for their succor, and they would reach down as one mind and soothe the White Strake until he no longer had the will to kill the earth in whole. Definitely the villain here. And Garid, I don't know why I'm throwing out crazy accents for all these names and stuff, but whatever. And Garid of the man of G once saw such a madness from afar and maneuvered after it had abated to drink together with Pelinal, and he asked what such an affliction felt like, to which Pelinal could only answer, like when the dream no longer needs its dreamer. Okay. Yeah, nah, Pelinal is definitely not a good guy. Why he was blessed with this, like, holy armor, I really do not understand. I feel like the reason he wasn't truly able to defeat Umuril was probably because, like, the gods judged him not a very good guy, and was just like, we're gonna keep this villain who's probably even worse around, because why not? Also, what kind of fucking elf is that? That's supposed to be like an Iliad? Is that really what the Iliads look like? Because that is pretty fucking strange. Also, the beginning of this is different, so yeah. Volume 7, On His Battle with Umuril in His Dismemberment. Editor's note, this fragment comes from a manuscript recovered from the ruins of the Alessian Order's monastery at Lake Canalis, which dates it to sometime prior to the War of Righteousness in the First Era to 2321. However, textual analysis suggests that this fragment actually preserves a very early form of the song, perhaps from the mid-6th century. And so, after many battles with Umaril's allies were dead Aurorans, ooh, that's how you say that, lay like candlelight around the throne, the Pelinal surrounded by the last Iliad sorcerer kings and their demons, each one heavy with Varliance, the White Straight cracked the floor with his mace, and they withdrew. And he said, "Bring me Umaril." They withdrew because it banishes undead up to a certain level. Okay. With his mace, and they withdrew. And he said, "Bring me Umaril that called me out." And while mighty in his aspect and wicked, deathless golden Umaril favored ruin from afar over close combat, and so he tarried in the shadows of the White Tower before coming forth. More soldiers were sent against Pelinal to die, and yet they managed to pierce his armor with axes and arrows, for Umaril had wrought each one by a long Varliance, which he had been hoarding since his first issue of Challenge. Presently the half-elf showed himself bathed in meridian light, and he listed his bloodline in the Iliadun and spoke of his father, a god of the previous Kalpa's world's river, and taking great delight in the heavy breathing of Pelinal, who had finally bled. Text loss. And Umaril was laid low, the angel face of his helm dented into an ugliness which made Pelinal laugh, and his unfeathered wings broken off with sword strokes delivered when Pelinal stood frothing above him, insulting his ancestry and anyone else that took ship from old El Nefay, which angered the other elvish kings and drove them to a madness of their own, and they fell on him, speaking to their weapons, cutting the Pelinal into eighths while he roared in confusion, which even the council of skiffs could hear. So it skipped over the fight. Pelinal defeated him and then was insulting him, and then all the other gods that were, just kind of watching in the shadows, because they, respected the 1v1 duel, Then they were like, nah, fuck you. Attack him, split him up into eighths. Those eighths, I take it, ended up somehow splitting off into all the different items, because there's 8 different items that the man has. Or maybe that's just like, either that, or it's just like those are all the 8 is just like the holy number, there's 8, the 8 and 1. But anyway, Text lost. Rhiannon Moore shook the whole of the tower with mighty bashing from his horns the next morning, and some were slain in overabundance in the taking, and men looked for more Iliads to kill, but Pelinal had left none save those kings and demons that had already begun to flee. It was Mordehaius who found the White Strake's head, which the kings had left to prove their deeds, and they spoke, and Pelinal said things of regrets. But the rebellion had turned anyway, and more words were said between these immortals that even the Pedavant would not deign to hear. I thought this story would be a lot more relevant, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word I'm looking for. Volume 8, on his revelation at the death of the Al-Esh. Editor's note: this is the oldest and most fragmentary of all the extant Pelinal texts. It is, however, likely closest to the original spoken or sung form of the song, and therefore has great value despite its brevity. Strangely, it appears that Pelinal is present at Alessia's deathbed, although he was killed by Umaril earlier in the saga, years before Alessia's death. Some scholars believe that this fragment is not actually a part of the Song of Pelinal, but most accept its authenticity, although there is still much debate as to its significance. And left you to gather sinew with my other half, who will bring light thereby to that immortal idea that brings the gods great joy, that is freedom, which even the heavens do not truly know, which is why our father, the... text lost... in those first days' spirit swirls before convention, that which we echoed in our earthly madness, let us now take you up, we will show our true faces, which eats one another in amnesia each age. Okay, yeah, you know, I really thought this was going to be a lot more relevant to what the fuck I needed to know for what the fuck I'm about to do. But yeah, I guess we're gonna go talk to the prophet now. That was some very interesting reading. I don't really understand why they made that so just like confusing and like mostly irrelevant. You know what I mean? But yeah. Anyway, now we're gonna go defeat Umaril for good. And I must say, Pelinal appears to be a pretty shitty person, if we're gonna be real. I don't think he's a very good guy, but apparently everybody else does, so I guess he's a good guy. Yeah, let's go talk to the prophet.
I don't wanna see the glow without you. Refuse to even leave my home without you. Or my brain's gonna explode without you. I don't even know how to cope without you. Cause I don't wanna see the glow without you. Refuse to even leave my home without you. Or my brain's gonna explode without you. I don't even know how to cope without you.